Scene 1, The Encirclement. Narrator. The Battle of Epsilon Gate was over before it began. 400 alien warships of the Kroth Dominion surrounded the Terran Fleet, barely 40 ships, damaged and scattered. Every logical species would surrender. Every rational commander would negotiate. But humanity didn't send rational commanders. They sent Captain Elias Ward. Ward stood on the bridge of the TSS Valiant, smoke curling from cracked consoles. Status report, he growled. Shields at 12%. Weapons offline on decks 4 and 7. We can't win this, sir, his officer said. Ward smiled grimly. Good. Then we'll make them remember us. Scene 2, The Alien Perspective. On the Kroth flagship, Commander Vrax watched the human ships hold formation. They do not flee, his advisor noted. Are they attempting deception? Vrax clicked his mandibles. No. They are simply too primitive to understand inevitability. He sent the order, crush them. Laser fire ripped through the void. Human ships burned. And yet, they advanced. Scene 3, The Refusal. The Valiant's calm crackled. Fleet command to all Terran ships, the gate must not fall. Hold the line. Ward's reply was simple. Understood. We'll hold it, until we can't. The human fleet shifted position, deliberately placing themselves between the Kroth and the Epsilon jump gate. Every ship locked weapons and began transmitting an old Earth signal, a song. It was Invictus, the poem that once carried humanity through darkness. Ward whispered the last line to himself. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Then he gave the order. All ships, fire everything. Scene 4, The Turning Point. The aliens expected retreat. Instead, they saw madness. Human ships rammed Kroth cruisers, venting atmosphere and fire. Boarding pods launched directly into enemy hulls. Even crippled vessels detonated their cores manually, dragging alien ships into oblivion with them. The Kroth fleet's tactical AIs froze, unable to predict suicidal strategies. Vrax shouted, they don't fear death. They're choosing it. Scene 5, The Message. As the Valiant's hull tore open, Ward's final transmission echoed through open channels. To any species watching, understand this. Humanity doesn't fight to win. We fight because surrender is not in our DNA. Then his ship, aflame, rammed the Kroth flagship, igniting a chain reaction that shattered half their fleet. Scene 6, Aftermath. Weeks later, the Galactic Council recorded the event. Out of 40 Terran ships, none survived. Out of 400 Kroth ships, 180 were destroyed. Mathematically impossible. Strategically insane. And yet, they called it, the Day of Iron Will. Vrax, now scarred and trembling, testified before the council. You cannot conquer them. Humanity does not fight wars, they end them, even in death. Scene 7, The Council Debate. Narrator. Weeks after Epsilon Gate, the Galactic Council assembled in silence. Representatives of 100 species reviewed the human combat recordings, every explosion, every suicide strike, every moment of defiance. The hologram paused on Captain Ward's final message. We fight because surrender is not in our DNA. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Zyrek of the Methar Collective hissed. This is barbaric. They destroyed themselves. But Admiral Krell of the Sarn Dominion responded. Barbaric? No. That was faith. They believed in something beyond logic. The council president asked. Then what shall we do with humanity's request for admission? A long silence followed. Finally, Admiral Krell spoke again. Approve it. Any species willing to die for others deserves a seat among us. And so, humanity's ashes earned them a voice among the stars. Scene 8, the Kroth response. Far across the galaxy, the Kroth Dominion licked its wounds. Their once proud armada was crippled. In the royal chamber, Commander Vrax stood before the Kroth Emperor. Vrax, Your Majesty, we underestimated them. They value death as victory. Emperor, no, they value meaning. They are a plague of purpose. He turned to his advisors. From this day forth, no Kroth vessel will engage humans directly. If they appear, we retreat. Fear had replaced arrogance. And in that fear, humanity had won something more valuable than territory, reputation. Scene 9, the Survivor. Months later, a distress beacon drifted through deep space. It was faint, ancient, and human. A salvage ship picked it up, the Eclipse Dawn. Captain Yara Holt's crew followed the signal and found a shattered wreck, the remains of the TSS Valiant. Inside the debris, they found one cryopod still intact. The nameplate read, Ward. Yara whispered, "You've got to be kidding me." The pod opened with a hiss. Captain Ward gasped awake, coughing ice vapor. "How long?" he asked. 3 months, Yara replied. "The galaxy thinks you're a legend." Ward smirked. "Good. Let's make sure they're right." Scene 10, Humanity's Return. Narrator. Reborn from ruin, humanity. Humanity rebuilt. They forged the Epsilon Accord, a defense alliance of species inspired by human courage. Former enemies joined them, even the Sarn and Methar fleets volunteered to serve beside humans. Across the stars, a new saying spread. If you hear human engines, hope has arrived. The legend of Epsilon Gate became mandatory study in every military academy. It wasn't a story about war. It was a story about willpower. Scene 11, the final reflection. Soft background music, hopeful and solemn tone. Narrator. No monument marks the graves of the Terran Fleet. No world claims their victory. But in the silent darkness of Epsilon Gate, their wreckage still drifts, a monument made of steel and fire. Every passing ship hears the faint signal still looping from a damaged transmitter. Hold the line. Humanity stands. And in that endless echo, the galaxy remembers. Humanity did not survive because they were stronger. They survived because they refused to stop. Scene 12, a century later. Narrator. 100 years after the Battle of Epsilon Gate, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Borders had changed. Empires had fallen. But one thing endured, the Iron Doctrine. Every spacefaring race now taught it. When hope fails, fight anyway. Humanity had become not just a species, but an idea. Wherever they went, they rebuilt broken worlds, revived dying civilizations, and turned despair into defiance. But peace never lasts forever. Scene 13, the new threat. From the edge of known space came a signal unlike any before. Massive energy readings, gravitational anomalies, and a sound that wasn't quite a message, but a roar. The Galactic Council convened once more. Sensors identified the source, the Erebon Swarm, a biomechanical hive mind consuming entire systems. They didn't conquer. They devoured. The Council trembled. The numbers were impossible. Entire fleets vanished without trace. And as before, the galaxy turned to humanity. Scene 14, the Iron Fleet returns. Narrator. The new Terran Fleet wasn't like the old one. Each ship carried the names of those lost at Epsilon Gate, engraved on its hull. At the head of the armada stood Admiral Elias Ward, old now, but unbroken. He had become a living symbol, the man who refused extinction. On the eve of battle, a young alien officer asked him, "Admiral, what if we can't win this time?" Ward looked out the viewport, eyes on the stars. "Then we make sure they remember that we tried." Scene 15, the Battle of the Swarm. Sound, Distant thunder, ship alarms, rising music. The Erebon swarm flooded into the system, a living storm of metal and light. Every rational being would have fled. Humanity advanced. They deployed weapons that defied understanding, graviton spears, solar lances, EMP torpedoes. Each ship fought until its name was burned away. Allied species followed their lead, not because they believed they could win, but because they believed in humans. For the first time in galactic history, the Erebon faltered. They had never met resistance that refused annihilation.